contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee.
We are back. For the first time in 62 years, the Florida Memorial Lions will hit the gridiron, and their home games will be streamed by the Black College Sports Network at www.fmuathletics.com, www.mybcsn.net, and on the MyBCSN app, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids' apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
This is Brian Fulford. AD Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBNOnline, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the JERICHO Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
So you're a philosopher? Yes, 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 yes.
This is Thoughts and Moments. Hey, it's your boy Silly Thoughts, the Prince of Petty.
And I'm Joy, also known as Joy Ride. I provide the moments to make your life better.
We're here weekly to provide the latest news, trending topics, and edutainment.
We will engage, entertain, and inform, but we keep it real and we keep it fun.
So whether you're riding in these streets or podcast surfing with your peeps, this is a show you don't want to miss.
Every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And guess what? It's 5 p.m., so let's go.
Hey, it is your boy Silly Thoughts, and welcome back. We've been off for 2 weeks. Joy, it's great to see your face.
It's good to see you too, kiddo. Hey, I am Joy Ride, his faithful co-host. And yeah, we are remote today, as you can clearly see. And I'm excited to be on my couch.
We should have never done this because we may never go back to the studio.
I ain't never leaving my house again, man. I don't know. You know, they already said.
It is a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Long Island.
What you drinking on?
I'm drinking a Long Island iced tea.
Oh, you meant that when you said Long Island. Because I'm like, this is just honey bourbon and Coke. Because that's what I have in the refrigerator.
Look, that's why I disappeared for a minute.
Wait, shout out to Sugar Chateau and the little cakes in the jar. Because
that's the jar
I
from
have
the cake.
4 glasses.
The cake jar is coming in full effect. But yeah, that's why it took me a minute. Cause I had to put all the ingredients for this Long Island in there. So that's a shame. That's called quarantine liquor bar. It's a full stock bar over there. We had an upper top shelf over there. I'm talking every kind of A you can get. Tanqueray, Hennessy, Cabassier, any kind of A you want.
You know what? That's a form of self-care as far as I'm concerned. I need this. Because if people had to go through what we have to go through as, intelligent, aspirational Black Americans, like every day, bruh, every day. Just a little something to take the edge off,
No, how about that? This is gonna take more than the edge. It's gonna sand it down for a minute. But seriously, we are back, and a lot has happened over the past 2 weeks. We've had the cases have gone up, as we always know that the cases have gone up in terms of coronavirus. We had the first, I want to call it a debate because that's its official title. I don't know what it was, but it was definitely a debate, somewhat on this past weekend, Tuesday. We've had a couple of interesting articles that we're going to talk about a little bit today. Joy brought to my attention, and I thought it was a really kind of thought-provoking moment. And so Joy's going to talk to us about that. And then we're just going to kind of catch up over the past 2 weeks. NFL has gotten bit by COVID for the first time. They got through the first couple of weeks, but they got bit by COVID. One of the teams, and they've had to cancel, reschedule some games from this weekend because of COVID. And so COVID is a big part of our life, but it's not the only part of our life. So we're gonna talk a little fun too. But as we always do,
we're gonna keep it real. We're gonna keep it fun. But I feel like we've reached the point in reporting of cases where you go, 10, 20, 40, 200, 600, 800, whatever, 1,000. Now it's like, it's bad. I don't have to give you the number, and it's not going away. Like, we're not. I can tell you that it's 218,000, and it was 214,000 before, but it's a whole damn lot more than any other country, and it's gonna keep going up because we refuse to do right. We ain't got no act right in us, like as a country. I was doing a class, and this is why I cannot drink this whole thing because I have another class to do at 9:00 tonight. I'm doing a inclusion class for a group that is in Singapore. And the first time I did a class with them, they asked me, we don't mean to be rude. We have a question for you. We'd like to know the things that we see on the news about the mask and the isolation. Is that true? And I was like, yup, everything you see is true. We don't know how to act. Don't come over here because it's a hot mess. And you know what I found really interesting? And this, again, it speaks to, I think what we're going through right now is showing the chinks in the armor for a country that espouses itself as, we are the best at everything. We're number one, America first, et cetera, et cetera. But then you look at how our results are with this pandemic, and it is a direct function of our inability to be empathetic towards each other. Everybody's out for self. Everybody doesn't give a damn what happens to other people as long as I'm cool. But then once I'm not cool, I want everybody to do what I need to have done for me. We're very self-centered as a country. And so I'm telling them about the quarantine and about the isolation and everything. And they're like, that is very interesting. We don't call it quarantine here. We call it one country called it social responsible isolation. Another one called it self-isolation for the community. Like it didn't translate correctly, but basically they started off saying we're doing this for each other. And we started off saying they're trying to take away my freedom. And that narrative matters, and that narrative changes everything because it changes how people see it. So now we have something to fight and rail against,
Well, I think the president has hijacked how this is perceived. And so ultimately the buck stops with him. And so he knew that he mishandled it. And he won't ever admit that publicly, but he knows he mishandled this whole situation, and it caused the loss of jobs. There still hasn't recovered, and it caused a significant amount of lives. And so now, but he needs the economy to get back to what it was so he can boast about how this is the greatest economy in history. Mm-hmm. He can't boast that when people have lost jobs. He can't boast that when people have lost lives. So he pushed to rush us back to reopening the country when we weren't ready to do that. And it has really hampered our ability to get beyond this. Other countries have reopened effectively because their administration, their government. they did the right thing, and the people followed them. But right now, what's happening is he has worked so hard for 3.5 years to divide us as a country, and so the people that followed him kept following him, and it put us all in jeopardy by doing that. And so that's really, I hold him accountable for that. If you're the leader, you got to when you're going to take the lion's share of the praise when things go good, you got to take it when it goes bad too. You can't push that off on everybody else. So that's on you, buddy boy.
But I mean, they call him Teflon Don for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
Not because things shouldn't stick to him, but because he refuses to stay still long enough for him to get hit. He ducks and dodges like the best dodgeball player of all time. He is an Olympic dodger. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not even going to talk about the other things that he's dodged, but you know what? I'm not going to embrace. You see, I'm talking with my eyes closed because it bothers me so much. It bothers me so much. Like I'm excited that we did this thing remote because I'm laying here on my couch. I got my little tank top. I got my little wrap on. I got my little binky. Me and my little blanket. Just sit here and just like look out the window like this is going to hell in a handbasket. And like there have been days. Which like last week when we took that week off, I could not deal. I'm not even gonna lie. I could not cope. I could not maintain a stiff upper lip. I needed that moment to grieve, to mourn, to get my act back together. Because there was a moment where I was like, this is going, and it wasn't that I was surprised. It was that I was confirmed. I was like, this is going exactly how I thought it was going to freaking go.
Right.
And all the things all my worst case scenario ideas are coming to fruition. And that's scary to me. It is very scary to me to see videos of people not having any other ideological reason than if Biden wins, we're coming for you. How am I supposed to take that?
Yeah. And that's scary. And that was kind of reiterated on during the debate when Trump was asked a very, very easy question. Will you renounce white supremacy? And he walked around that question. And that was a very, very simple.
He did say, sure. I know it was just that small.
No, he said, sure, if you want me to. He said, sure, if you want me to. If you want me to. Not that he wanted to. He was like, basically, and when you watch that again, you really listen to what he said. He said, if you want me to. So he's basically saying, Chris, I'm doing what you want to do, not what I want to do. And we know since the moment we were introduced to Donald Trump, he only does what he wants to do. And he is very good at doing what he wants to do. So for him to say, if you want me to, that really was saying, I don't really want to do this, but apparently I have to because you keep asking me about it. And so that's
saying, fine.
Right. I'll do it. And I don't even know what you're talking about, but let's talk about Antifa. So like, you don't know anything about white supremacy, even though the FBI have given reports and they're updating their reports. And right now stories are redacted reports are coming out that are really seeing how serious these groups are. You don't know anything about that, but you could tell me about Antifa and BLM all day long. And he's like, that's all I see. Well, that's all you're looking for. It's called selective attention. If you need to understand that, Mr. President. So that whole piece about it really, really bothered me. And I think, and to see people, and I've read some threads and I had to stop because I like to keep my cortisol level down. So they stressed me out when I started reading those things on social media. But I really had a guy who said, well, you had to look at his eyes because he rolled his eyes. And so that should let you know that he really didn't mean what he was saying. And I was like, if I have to go that far, to try to defend him, or if I have to go that far to try to see that he's not really kind of blowing a dog whistle for white supremacists, then he's not doing a good enough job. He needs to make it definitive because people are going to take him at his word, not at, well, you didn't see him roll his eyes. No. What if I was listening to that? What if I'm blind? I heard what he said.
Because a lot of people listen. A lot of people still listen or have it playing in the background, on YouTube or whatever. That's not good enough for me. And matter of fact, I got into an argument today on one of my friends' Facebook page, and she is my good friend, and she is a strong, decades-long ally. And she was like, basically tagged me like, Joy, you see this nonsense? And I was like, bruh, look. And we got into it. I got into it with one of the people on her page, and I was like, you know what? I can do whatever I can to show you that this man has racist tendencies and racist ideas, and you're not going to believe me. And finally, I sent him a video of Trump talking about the Central Park Five, and that he specifically says on air, on tape, without any misunderstanding, I hate them, and I want everyone to hate them because hate is the only way we're going to get anything done. And this is for 5 boys. There was no DNA evidence that they had done anything. They were, beaten into and coerced into, the story of the Central Park 5. And if anybody out there doesn't know the story, look it up. But he took out a full page ad. He wanted the death penalty for people that had been exonerated. At that point, when he took out those ads, he poisoned the ideas, poisoned the jury pool in New York. And even though the lawyers of those guys said he helped get them convicted because everybody had heard the story, and it played into the idea that Black men are dangerous, that Black men are rapists. Even here we are 20 years later, and the idea, you remember, what's that crazy man's name? Mel Gibson. You remember when Mel Gibson lost his mind and left that long voicemail on his ex-wife's machine, back when we had voicemail machines? And he said all this vitriol, all this venom and violence and stuff. And he specifically said, I hope you get raped by a pack of N-words. That comes from that idea that there were roving gangs of rapist Black men, that starts with this misrepresentation of 5 innocent guys. And when they were declared innocent, that didn't make the news the way their conviction did. Just like this guy that shot himself.
They don't know they're wrong about I read about that. The funny thing is they don't want to admit that when they're wrong, and so it's funny. Facebook gives you the reminders of old posts. So the reminder today was today. I guess apparently today was the day that Amber Geiger was convicted for the shooting of Botham Jean, or the murder of Botham Jean. And my post associated with that was. I said, I found it shocking because she played into an old narrative as part of her defense. Notwithstanding the fact that she was a police officer that had been trained to assess situations visually, to see everything that's going on. Not that, but she was a blonde white woman that killed a larger Black male. And so therefore she had to be in fear for her life. Not the fact that she had a gun, not the fact that she was a trained police officer. She just had to be in fear for her life. And so that made sense. And so it still makes sense to many people. And they felt like she was unjustly convicted for that. Not the fact that she was in the wrong apartment, not the fact that she didn't recognize any of her furniture. She just swore she was in her apartment. And when she walks in, she sees a man sitting on the couch eating ice cream. So that just plays to that old narrative about the hulking big Black man that's coming to get you. And that's what Trump was playing into on Tuesday night. He was talking about the loss of the suburbs. They're going to move into the suburbs. They're not going to be the same. The suburbs were created to keep away from Black people, from being in the city. And that's why they started redlining, to keep Black people out of the suburbs. But if you notice the suburbs in 2020, they're integrated. So I don't know what he's talking about. Because I got Black, Indian, and Hispanic in my neighborhood, white in my neighborhood. So I don't know what he's talking about. I live in America.
You got to remember, he hasn't lived among people in like 30 years. He has always lived in his tower. So he doesn't know what the suburbs look like anymore. He thinks they look like they did in 1985. And it's 2020.
Yeah, that's cool. So
I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I mean, I am.
Yeah.
But I don't want to talk about that. Yeah. So let's move on. We're calling this episode, excuse my French, get it ready for the bloop if you need it. We're calling this episode The Shit Show. Because that's what we got. I'm looking at international news because I follow a lot of, and I will admit that I'm looking at international headlines and stuff, but international news is like America, y'all, I don't know. Like that's the general consensus around the world of, like, when you see like a fight break out. Matter of fact, there's a video, y'all should go check it out. There's a video of 2 old men fighting. And everybody around him is like, no, I'm not sure where it is because they're not speaking English. And it's clear that it's not in the United States, but it's 2, they're like septuagenarians, and they are they're hobbling on canes, and one dude swings so hard, he falls to the ground. And it's
I broke his hip. You look like he broke his hip.
I feel like he did break his hip. But I mean, I was like, this is live coverage of the debate because you got 2 old men fighting. And I will say this, I got another perspective from a friend of mine and she talked about being in an abusive relationship, and she talked about
Okay.
living with a narcissist, and she talked about the fact that she used to not complain, she used to file grievances, try to get restraining orders. She tried to tell people what was happening to her, and the response by and large was, well, what did you do?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you should just not do something to provoke this, mental and physical violence against her. And a lot of it was verbal. And when she would try to defend herself, he would belittle her, talk about what she had done. You've done this, you've done that, talk over her, bring up stuff from 20 years ago, bring up stuff from, a whole different fight, talk about other people, anything other than talk about the issue at hand, because that would force him to be culpable, force him to have a reckoning with his own behavior. So he just went anywhere and everywhere else until finally she started shouting too. And now, oh, you're so emotional. Why do you act this way? I can't talk to you now. And she can't get anywhere. Finally, she just had to leave. And so I didn't really think about it because she talked about how triggering, she talked about how triggering this debate was for her because she saw that same behavior out of our current president. And let's not forget, Joe Biden has a stutter, and some of his, that it wasn't him being flustered. He always has to deal with that. And having a narcissist like that attack someone who was going to always have to struggle to control that stutter. She was like, Biden did the best that he could have possibly done. Because if you don't defend yourself against a bully like that, you're weak. You're a sucker. You're too weak to lead. And his base would have eaten that up. But if you do defend yourself, oh, you're no better than him. So him defending himself and getting a draw was the best you can do. And I hadn't thought about it that way before.
Well, I think the thing is, it falls into the narrative about Black men and Black people in general. But they injustice. You finally get fed up, you push back, and then you fall into that narrative that they've already created about you, of being the angry Black woman, being the aggressive and violent Black man. And you're like, wait a minute, y'all been taking advantage of me. And then when I raise my voice, you want to call the police and take me down because I'm pushing back and I'm saying, I'm not going to allow you to take advantage of me. And that's the same situation that happened on Tuesday night. You see, they're supposed to be debating point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint. Trump keeps talking over him. Chris Wallace did the best he could, but he's thinking about his own job. And he understands who he's employed by. He is employed by Fox News. And Fox News has been overwhelmingly supportive of the president. And so they were giving him rope that he took. And so he kept going and talking over. And then finally, when Biden pushed back, oh, look at him. He just, and it was like, wait a minute. Let's really kind of dissect this and look at it from the point. And I think most people got it, but the people that got it, most of the people that got it were the people that already knew and accept how Trump is, not the Trumpettes, as some people have called him, I think it's funny, not the Trumpettes that will find a way to defend everything that he does. And so when I saw people still defending what he does, and I had that kind of epiphany when I was realizing, I was like, oh, America's going to see how he really is. And I was like, no, they understand how he is, and they're okay with that. They're very okay with it. Matter of fact, they celebrate the fact because they see that his buffoonery they see that as strength. They misinterpret that as strength, as his just being talking over people and belittling people as, oh, that's a sign of strength. That's the type of leader. And that's not. And the tax returns was another kind of flashpoint for America to really see the type of person that he was. It's like, every president for the past 30 Go ahead.
You're staring at a decrepit, rotten, ridiculous shell of a person and saying, this is the best leader we have to put forward. What does that say about how you see yourself? And again, I've said this before, especially some of the training class that I've talked about. The safest place to stand with a bully is behind them. And so you can watch him target other people knowing that you are safe. Indeed. Knowing that you are safe because he's looking at someone else. And as long as he is beating up that other person, you can sometimes get some halo effect. Yeah, you might even get a kick in on your own or whatever. But ultimately, when that person is dead and beaten to death, he's going to turn on you. And that's what people always forget. It's like that that poem. I stayed silent when they came for my neighbor, and then they came for me. That is happening right now. We are seeing this happen right now. And my fear, and this is my real fear, I don't want to lose my life to prove a point to people who refuse to listen right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what got me wrapped up in my house, staring at the wall like, damn, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through this. And I am a well off. I got my 401k. I could probably get out of the country. There's a very good chance, I'm be refugee to Jamaica. I'll be like, hey, people, just let me stay in your house for a couple of days. I'm gonna just lay low out here, bruh. If I can make it to Miami, I can make it out of this country. Like, I'll still vote. I mean, we're talking about survival at this point. I got to make it through Florida. But anyway, I'm giving away my plans. But anyway, it shouldn't have to come to that. All the evidence that has been presented to show the moral differences between one candidate and another, it should be enough. And if it's not enough, and I go back to my other favorite quote, because prejudice is an emotional commitment to ignorance. And you have 60-something million people in this country who refuse to see things differently not because they're comfortable, but because they want to hate who he hates. Meghan McCain said that 4 years ago. Well, he hates who we hate. That's why we like him. And she meant that.
And that's really the ultimate kind of what makes me sad about this whole situation is that the gaslighting of the American public started very, very long ago, right? And so, and for those of you that I forget the name of the movie that gaslighting kind of came out of, but it's called, So basically, that terminology is when somebody keeps telling you something over time, even though it's not, if and you see and everything your fiber says it's not true, but they keep saying it to over time, that after a while you start believing that it's true. That's what I feel like what's happened to those 60 million people that follow him. It's like it's gotten to the point, and this is the issue that I find to be the most ironic about this whole situation. Everybody that he's discredited, he hired, right? So these are the people that he hired to be in his position that he didn't. So when he stood up there and talked about how great they were when he hired them, but then he dumped on them when he had to fire them, when they realized, hey, this is some bullshit that's going on in this administration. So the people that get fired, they were terrible. And he believed it. It's like, no, you hired them. So either they were terrible when you hired them, so they shouldn't have been hired, or they're terrible because they're not doing what you want them to do because you're stupid, right? So that's really what it all boils down to. So, and what I see over and over again is that same kind of symbolic kind of silliness. And this is the last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to throw it back to you, Joy. The ultimate irony, and I wanted to post this on social media, is how, and what I don't care about is the fact that he paid $750 in taxes, because rich people try to avoid taxes all the time. What I do care about is the fact that he is compromised and he has $400 million in debt that is due to foreign entities. And therefore, what is he willing to do to pay off that debt and not be held responsible for that debt? That should be more important than the fact that he paid $750. Like, I'm like, oh, he got a great accountant and he's figured it out and he's cooked the books. That's fine. As a business owner, I'd probably do the same thing to try to pay fewer taxes. But what I'm talking about is you don't want a president to be that compromised financially, because they're going to start making decisions that aren't in the best interest of the American public. That's what we should be concerned about, in my opinion.
100% agree with you, because desperate people do desperate things. Mm-hmm. And a desperate person with that much power can decimate this country with a bad deal that is in his best interest. This goes back to my earlier comment about this country being so self-centered. He is a walking narcissistic Cheeto ball. Like, that is what he is. And he'll flip on all of us to get himself out of trouble, and then and then go to some non-extradition country and then laugh at us for trusting him. And that's what people seem to forget. If you look at all of the folks that stumped for him at first, Chris Christie, Mitt Romney, what's his name, Ted Cruz, etc. And then he called Ted Cruz's wife ugly, and he accused Marco Rubio's parents of being involved in an assassination. And then he just did Romney real dirty. Like, all of this stuff. These are supposed to be people that were on his side. Look at what Obama did when he after the field was cleared and he became the presidential nominee. He put half them folks in his cabinet or somewhere in there. I'm expecting Biden to do the same thing. So when I say I'm voting for the Biden-Harris ticket, I'm voting for the Biden-Harris ideology overall. I want to see Yang somewhere in DC. I want to see Stacey Abrams maybe over public housing. I want to see a real educator over our as Secretary of Education. I want to see people that have some sense and maybe even try to run for president for their agenda. I want all that to blend together. But what I'm seeing from him is he likes to get people like a bully, get you, shake your hand, and then kick you in the balls and laugh at you and stomp on you while you're down. He is the worst of us. And it bothers me, again, that so many people love the worst of us and refuse to see him as anything other than the best because they...
Get your drink. So I will say this, and for the people that are watching, and thank you all for watching. And chat room, I'm trying to respond to you all as much as I can, but I will say this: if you don't, the fact that he sat up there and looked in the camera and looked into the camera twice because he said it in the White House, said he doesn't know who the Proud Boys are. That is his failure. And that is nobody else's failure. You just can't say, well, they must not be that big because the president doesn't know about them. He does know about them. He's a liar. He's told over 40,000 lies since he's been in office. He's a liar. You know that. He's a liar. If he doesn't, but let's follow the lie. If he doesn't know about them, then he should. Because what I posted on my personal Facebook page, and I'll put it in the Thoughts and Moments page, is a montage of interviews with the guy that started the Proud Boys. And he openly talks about enjoying, seeking, and wanting to increase violence. And so when you rail about Antifa causing violence, you talk about Black Lives Matter being violent organizations, and then you say, oh, I don't know anything about the Proud Boys. And they're going on radio shows, going on podcasts, speaking about violence and saying we want to incite violence. And he said we want to choke people. I mean, if you watch it, it's chilling to hear somebody openly talk about that in the way he talked about it. And so if he doesn't know about the Proud Boys, that's his failure as another failure as commander-in-chief, because he should know about the Proud Boys. And if he does, and he's lying to us, then that says another thing, that he's really using them as a fail-safe for, if I lose this election, I'm going to turn them on. And that's all they need. Because the Proud Boy says in one of the clips, hey, we're here to, and the police, and he said, and I want the police to turn a blind eye. And so they are active, and they're infiltrating our police forces. They're infiltrating our law enforcement, and they're doing it in a very, very calculated way. And so we can't just fall asleep at the wheel and fall for the gaslighting, because they keep telling you, oh no. And inherently, good people want to believe other people are good, right? And so you inherently want to think, oh, nobody can do that, because you're a good person. So you don't think that way. So you automatically assume that somebody else doesn't think that way. You can't go for that. You cannot go for that. You got to say, I can't put anything past you, because I wouldn't do it doesn't mean that you wouldn't. And when somebody shows you who they are, like it says, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Elaine in our chat room, she makes a really good point. She's like, you can't even work at a financial institution as a teller with massive amounts of debt, because the risk that you might push bad loans or bad paper for your own benefit, especially when commissions are offered, is too high. We're talking about loans in a particular city at a bank teller. You can't work at a bank with massive debt, and we have someone with hundreds of millions of dollars of debt running our country.
Why do you think he didn't want to turn in his tax returns? He knew the debt was there. He knew the debt was there.
It's also being reported that the rumor is he has decided he will not agree to changing the rules for the next debate about respecting time and being quiet.
Yes. They're talking about muting the mics. And I kept saying that night. It's like, just turn his mic off. Right. And he'll just be in there talking to himself. But he was talking so loud. Biden's mic might have.
You know what they need to do next debate? Chastain Park. Because Chastain Park here in Atlanta will turn your mic smooth off. I don't care if people have paid all their money to come to your concert. I remember
Yes,
we were in the
they will.
middle of Bag
They'll kick
Lady
the plug
by
out on
Erykah
you.
Badu, and it was like, Bag Lady. They turned her back. 11:59 and 59 seconds. Bloop. And so,
Yeah.
we need people with that kind of control. Somebody said we need Sam Jackson as the next
Sam
moderator. I
Jackson,
would love to see that.
It'll be, but I don't think that even Sam Jackson could corral him, because it's not about him. Fair is not a word in his vocabulary. He doesn't understand.
And he doesn't have to have a cognizant argument. He doesn't have to make sense. He just has to keep letting his voice ring out. Just blah, 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 A, B, C, D, E, F, G, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, Z. He can say whatever. He literally is the personification of la, 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 la. Like, that's what we got out of that debate. You know what, though?
I've seen some videos of some of his supporters, and it was post debate, and they did a Biden supporter and a Trump supporter, and it was very, very interesting to see how two people saw the same event and interpreted it completely differently. So the Trump supporter was saying, "Oh, I was so glad that he was able to say stuff that the media has been attacking him on, and all this other stuff." And I was just, when he would say it, I would just be like, "Yes." They were listening. They had a filter. They were filtering out anything that Joe Biden said, and they were waiting to get from Trump what they wanted. That's called confirmation bias. We've talked about that on this show many times. They were waiting for the confirmation. When she heard it, she was like, cool, he won the debate, right? Because he confirmed what she wanted to have happen. She walked in with a set with beliefs, and he confirmed them. Boom, she was good. And another irony that I saw was that here is a man that was born on third base, born rich, and has lived off of the appearance of wealth for his entire career. He has talked about how he's got friends all over the world, and he's got properties, and he doesn't really need the job. He's just doing it for the American people. Cry victim so much. And this same man, when we talk about diversity training, he says, "Oh, that's people that's teaching you to hate America." And the people that support him will say, "Oh, stop playing the victim." This dude plays a victim every single day. The media is out to get him. His past appointees are out to get him. His people that he's hired are out to get him. Everybody's out to get him, except for those people that, but he doesn't know, but he's still standing here, and they speak that same victimology. They speak the same victimology, and you go, wait a minute, would you tell people that really have been victimized, Native Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, women, all of Asian Americans, forget them too, because they built those railroads going out in California, so don't get it twisted. And they mined all those
up in internment camps in World War II.
And in the internment camp during the World War. So Asian Americans too. People that have really been victims, not white people, people that have really been victims, you don't want to hear anything about that. You say, oh, you're playing the victim. But this dude has been playing the victim for 3.5 years. And I don't get the fact that you give him a pass for that.
I want to switch gears for a moment, because I'm sick. I'm almost through my drink, and I'm sick of talking about him. Because you know what we call this show, the shit show? That is him. He is a shit show. That is encompasses all of that. But I want to talk briefly about something you just said about the victims, about making yourself the victim, and I want to talk about victim blaming, because it is something that you see, and it is pervasive across all marginalized groups, right? Yeah. If something happened to you, it's your own fault. What did you do to have this happen to you? Think about Black people who get unjustly killed by the police. Well, you shouldn't have been outside. You shouldn't have had your hands in your pocket. You shouldn't have a hoodie on. You shouldn't have been looking suspicious. You looking, mad sus out here. But at the same time, think about women who report sexual assault. You shouldn't have had that dress on. You shouldn't have been at the party after 9 o'clock at night. You shouldn't have drank that drink. You shouldn't have been anywhere. All of these things that they tell women, it's your fault this happened to you. And we never once say that the rapist, the shooter, the school shooter, whatever, that they are a problem and that they need to be controlled. They need to have consequences. Oh, that was just a troubled young boy, and he's got his whole life ahead of him, and she was out there looking like a floozy, and she shouldn't have had on a short skirt, or that was just a cop who feared his life. Exactly. He was an Olympic swimmer. He wasn't even an Olympic swimmer. He's just a dude in the water. You know, like I'm really not. I'm really tired of the narrative that he was such a good athlete or whatever. But think about Both and Gene. You know, well, he shouldn't have been sitting in his house. And I heard he had a marijuana cigarette. You know, he's sitting there eating ice cream. I mean, if you're smoking weed, you probably did want some ice cream. That much I will concede. But you're in your own house, and they're like, well, he should have known to surrender. Somebody's breaking in your house. Same thing with Breonna Taylor. Somebody's breaking in your house, not announcing. It's a no-knock warrant. So remember that part. And so you have no right to defend yourself. Well, you brought this on yourself. Over and over again, people of that type of ideology blame the victim over. And a lot of this, when we talk about systemic oppression, systemic racism, systemic sexism, systemic homophobia, all of it is built into all of the systems that we have. You know, not allowing a gay couple to marry is systemic oppression. Not allowing them to adopt when there's so many children that need a home. You know, because, well, my religious beliefs say that I can't give them a kid. I don't hear God telling you right now that they shouldn't raise a child that doesn't have a family. You know, so anyway, I'm off on a tangent. My point is, over and over again, there's this umbrella of you don't deserve the rights I have because you're different from me. You know, you don't deserve any consideration because you probably brought it on yourself. If you had just done insert nonsense right here, if you had just done this wouldn't have happened to you. So therefore it's your fault. You know, and that victim blaming. Matter of fact, I think I said this a couple weeks ago. One of the people in my class taught me this. The Native American tribes, the First Nations, when, you know, as the colonies were moving west with manifest destiny, and that's a whole other piece of nonsense. But as they were moving west, the reports came back that the tribes were warring with each other. You know, a little turf war here and there in Oregon or whatever, California, little turf wars all over the place. And the message was, why should it matter if we kill them because they're killing each other? And when I heard that, I was like, that's the same bullshit they be talking about with black on black crime. You know, why should it matter if the cops are killing them because they're killing each other? If I have cancer and you shoot me, you can't tell me, well, you were going to die anyway, so I might as well shoot you. That's not how that works. That is not how that works at all. It's not how any of this works, right? So if you can't see that difference, if you can't see how using someone's, you know, flaw or whatever to shame them, to blame them for their own misfortune or whatever, if you can't see how that's wrong, but then turn around and talk about how, you know, white men are being reverse race discriminated against because we have to share. Miss me with that bullshit. Okay.
You know, it adds to the larger concept of to our laws and our kind of system of jurisprudence, which says beyond a reasonable doubt, right? And so you say, okay. So when I was getting my psych degree, I did some work for an attorney, and they were trying to defend a case, and I did some research for them. And what I found in my research was that when you're reading a document, the words you tend to focus on are the ambiguous words, the more subjective terms, because that allows you to apply your own definition of that word, and that changes the meaning of what's being written. So we say beyond a reasonable doubt. So what's reasonable? So the operative word is reasonable in that whole case, because what America has done over the 4+ centuries we've been in existence is create reasonable doubt, right? In terms of by putting out propaganda about African people, or eventually African Americans, putting out propaganda about Hispanic Americans, whatever, that propaganda about gay, whatever group you want to marginalize, that the propaganda is out there, the images, everything is out there. So even when you get a jury of your peers, that reasonable doubt has already been planted into their unconscious. And so when you see Black man defendant, you're more likely to say they're probably guilty. And so you're looking for confirmation of your bias that has been planted by everything that you see or hear about Black people. And so therefore you can stand out on the courthouse steps and say, hey, he was convicted by a jury of his peers. The evidence showed beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, the word reasonable is a big player in that whole situation, because what is reasonable, and what is reasonable is what we've been taught. And what we've been taught is Black people are prone to violence, Black people are prone to being criminals, Black people are prone to drug use, abuse, and all these other negative things, rape, whatever you want to put on there. And so therefore, when they're on trial for one of those crimes, you say, well, that's reasonable, right? And so therefore, you just need a little bit of evidence to suggest that they committed that crime. And so that's what we have. Right. And so you walk in, so even when they do voir dire or whatever, attorneys, y'all correct me on that term, even when they do that to select a jury, the jury has already been tainted, right? Unless they're Black, right? And that's why they fight so hard to keep Black people off the juries. People are like, and you might get a Black person. You might get a David Cameron. What's his name? Cameron
It
David.
aggravates me because I saw it earlier today. Sorry, I'm talking over you, my bad. But I saw it earlier today when I was having an argument that this guy was saying he had his Black friends don't think Trump is racist. And I'm like, who are your Black friends? Because none of my Black friends, and I'm pretty sure I have more than you, think that he's not. But there's always that one or two. Like you said, we're not a monolith. So you can absolutely get Black people who have that same mentality because they went to school with them. They, we all have the same education. And if you notice, and I talk about this all the time, if you notice education of when they integrate anything Black into history or anything in public schools, it's slavery, nothing. 1964 civil rights, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, nothing. If you're progressive, you might talk about Barack Obama as the first Black president. But from 1877 up until 1964, there is nothing. And they may throw out something about Jim Crow, and you like, who is that? And nobody really follows up on that. They don't teach that part because from 1877 to 1964, white people did some bullshit in this country over and over and over and over again. The burning of Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma was one of over 50 white mob violence incidents in the United States. And they are bloody. And they are predicated on nothing more than, I don't like you in my neighborhood. I don't want to see your face. I don't like the fact that you have a fancy car.
If you Google Red Summer, if you Google Red Summer from 1919, you can learn a lot of situations. I posted something today about what happened in Louisiana, about how at that point the Republicans were for Black folks. So that's why I'm like, when people come at me like Democrats were the Dixiecrats, I say I don't trust neither one of them because they just flip flop. Racist is racist. It's not a party that makes you racist. It's you that makes you racist, not the party. So anyway, so at that point, the Black people in Louisiana voted, and they overwhelmingly voted a Republican candidate into governor. The white Democrats at that time did not like that, and they went on a killing spree, right? And they wanted to, and I said, and I was trying to point out the parallels of it's really about even today. Yeah, they're not killing Black men, women, and children like they did back then, but it's all about suppressing our vote because they understand that we're going to vote against those people that are, whether overtly or covertly racist. We know what it is. We have lived it for 400 years. It's in our DNA. We can call a spade a spade. Only you trying to gaslight us into thinking that it's not what it is the reason why we got folks like, Mr. Cameron there in Kentucky that want to act like it's not real. And I don't know what he's like in his private life. I can't even speak on that. But I can tell you this. Brothers like that realize that it's more profitable for them to be the way he is. And so now he's trying to do preemptive strikes and saying that he never even introduced murder charges when he went before the grand jury, because the grand jury is closed, right? It's not open to the public. So he says, I took it to the grand jury and these are the charges they came back with. You didn't present murder charges, right? So the grand jury, when they sued, they say, no, we need to open that up because you're making us look bad. And I was on you because we could only put charges that you presented to us. And I'm like, and now he's want to issue out a statement. Oh, I didn't present the charges. No. We knew that. Yeah. Don't try to put it on them. That was you.
Mm-hmm. And if you think about that, how bad do you have to mess up for the grand jury to come out like, that wasn't us? Yo, that was him. Like, I need everybody to know we ain't had nothing to do. We're not with him. Because he wouldn't even send out the makeup of the grand jury. And I'm assuming, hoping, praying, whatever you want to say, that it was a diverse mix. But even if it wasn't, even if it was an all-white grand jury, somebody in that jury, some ally in the room was like, oh, hell no, y'all need to know what he did because he didn't do anything that y'all wanted him to do. So all of this, well, justice has won the day and blah, 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 blah. And what can I do? The grand jury didn't bring back anything other than this, reckless endangerment charge, wanton endangerment charge. And the grand jury was like, you didn't send us nothing else, son. They can't make up charges. They can only agree to what's been presented. And so
Exactly.
now, his ass gonna be on the line for this. And watch how fast they drop him. If this don't go his way, watch how fast they turn on him. It's just, just like your girl Candace Owens, who is all like, black people need to get over it, and there's no such thing as racism, filing a discrimination suit. Oh, baby girl, I thought it was nothing, no such thing as racism. What's this discrimination suit you coming up with, chick?
So
what
that's exactly what I'm not an attorney, but that's exactly what I would be playing in court. All of her statements about racism doesn't exist. And so I'm like, well, then why are you filing discrimination charges if it doesn't exist, right? You had the NCACP fighting on your behalf when you were in high school, and you said you were discriminated against. So now all of a sudden you're saying it doesn't exist, and you won a case when you were in high school about discrimination. So which one is it? And that's why I'm like, that's why I like people. I don't spend a lot of energy on those type of people because I know they exist, and I understand the psychology behind them choosing to go that way. I still think it's a terrible choice, and they're basically selling their soul, for that, the 9 pieces of silver that they're going to get. But they don't understand that the lynch mob will come for them too if he's not doing exactly what they want, and so. That's the piece that he's not understanding, and he's going to feel it. He's going to feel it. If they get some charges against those officers, guess what? They're gonna vote him out.
Yep. And then his backers, his mentor, the rest of them, they don't have nothing to do with him because he will have outlived his usefulness. He is no longer something they can use as a prop to say, "Look at my black friend. Oh, you messed up. Sorry. I don't know whatever saw, but he's one of the worst." And they'll just like Trump loves to do. But however, we only have like maybe 10 minutes left because I know you got to go at 6. Yeah. But one thing I do want to say, looking forward, I really am looking forward to the vice presidential debate because one, that'll be a much quieter event. I believe that things will be said that we can actually hear and understand the relative platforms of each one of these people. But I'm interested to see how people take that. They won't have the distraction of chaos during that debate. And I hope that people really come out and listen to what's being said. And I know I'm gonna be, in my little corner, like, excited for seeing my sister Kamala Harris do her thing. And I want to reiterate, there's a lot of layers here. Am I supporting her because she's black? No, I'm supporting her because she's on the ticket that I'm voting for, and I'm not voting straight party line, but I am trying to remove the current occupant from office. And so this is my best chance, and I'm voting for them. Now, am I happy that a black woman is on the highest ticket in the land? Hell yeah, I'm happy because this is something, again, just like Barack, if they win the White House, this is something that little black girls, hopefully who aren't poisoned by crazy black people, but little black girls can say, look at this black woman that did this, I can do this too. I think about, I will never forgive NASA for letting me work in Johnson Space Center for 3 different summers, and I never heard of Katherine Johnson. Right. I never heard of her until this movie comes out, and then I discover that, hey, maybe my interest in math isn't so weird. That representation, it makes a difference. So I'm excited to see.
I love what Patrice said. I love what Patrice said. Senator Harris is going to mop the floor with him. I totally agree with that. I think she's got black girl magic. But I will say this, when people push back and say, the only reason why Biden chose her is because she's black and she's a black woman. And I say, well, why, so basically that's completely dismissive of the work that she's done to get to that point, right? The fact that she worked her way up to be the Attorney General of one of the largest states in the country, the fact that she put her name in to be a presidential candidate and had people supporting her as a presidential candidate, not a vice presidential candidate. So you're just going to dismiss all of that, and you're saying the only reason he chose her was because she's a black woman. And so I say, I push my pushback to all those people, and this is what you need to ask them. Well, why did Trump choose Pence? Because if it's not about gender and race, then what is it about? Because she's actually more accomplished than him. Because I mean, yes, he was governor of a state, but he wasn't even going to think about running for president. I mean, I don't think he was even in that scope or in that
He was
space
sitting at
to even
home with mother.
think about running for president. And so she's more accomplished than he is. So we have to push back on that and say, well, the only reason why Trump picked Pence is because he's a white male. And that's what y'all want to see as a quote unquote leader, whatever that means to you in the grand scheme of things. So let's not fall for these narratives and these all these themes that they try to put out for Black Americans. You have to release those mental shackles and say, okay, yes. And there's some that we've shaken off easily, but there's some that we don't. And why do we assume that certain things are the way they are because he's Black? No. She's accomplished, and she's an accomplished woman, and that so happens to be Black. So that's and that makes me celebrate our accomplishments more, because I know as a Black female what she had to go through to get to where she was. So the fact that she got there means she had to go through more. She had to be more accomplished to get to, because all the statistics support that. So the fact that she's a Black female and he chose her says, hey, she must be jamming. She got to be on point. That's why I'm voting for Kamala. I'm really voting for Kamala more than I'm voting for Biden, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
I'm
Biden
voting
was
for
my
her.
choice. I'm gonna vote for him, but he wasn't my first choice, because I am that slightly far left person in some aspects. I
Right.
wanted to see Warren. I really thought Elizabeth Warren
That's who I voted
was,
for in the
she had.
primary. I'll be honest, I voted for Warren in the primary.
Yeah,
I voted
but
for
I
her.
understand why Biden is the guy. Let me tell you something, and this is a just practicality coming out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Biden telling Trump to shut up. Nobody could have gotten away with that but a white man.
No.
And I'm
No.
talking about from the looks of this entire country. Again, we are,
Mm-hmm.
white supremacy is in the air we breathe. No other demographic, whether female or minority, was going to get away with standing up to him. It was going to be
Right.
the angry Black woman, the emotional woman,
Mm-hmm.
the weird and crazy old Jewish guy. Like, they were going to pull all of that out for
Right.
any other candidate, which is why I think, like they say, Black women save the world. So many Black women, like 50 and up, voted for Biden because they're like, we know this game. He's the only one
We know
that
the
can go
game.
toe to toe with him, because even other people who see everyone else as inferior cannot see him as inferior because he is them. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
he's the only one that can get away with that.
Patrice, we're sorry. We're sorry, Patrice. Patrice mad at us. She voted for Kamala. So I apologize. I get it.
Patrice
But
is in California.
when I went into the booth, and full disclosure, as we wrap up, when I went into the booth, I already knew what it was, right? And so I wanted to send a symbolic vote. And so I probably could have symbolically voted for Kamala in that moment. I symbolically voted for Elizabeth. Because I think at that point, by the time it got to Georgia, was she on the ticket still? I don't even know if she was still on the ticket by the time when it got to Georgia. I gotta think about that. But I voted for Elizabeth. I pulled for her. I thought, yes, she doesn't have the great record on civil rights. I get it. But I liked her ideas, and I just wanted to send that messaging to Biden to say, if you don't choose a Black woman, you need to choose a woman as your running mate. And so I wanted to give her enough votes because of the three, there was him, Sanders, and Warren that were still kind of the top three.
That's what I saw.
So I wanted that message to say, you need to pick her. If between the top two, you need to pick her over Sanders. And not that I dislike Sanders, I just liked her better.
It's something that Jermaine Taylor is saying. And by the way, you should check out Soapbox Sundays with Jermaine Taylor. But he is saying that, Black people have always voted strategically. You've got to see where the safety side is. Because, again, a lot of people vote ideals. They vote, aspirational, etc. Black people, especially Black people over 50, they vote survival. How am I going to live through the next 4 years? And Biden was their best chance. That's what they saw. I cannot argue.
Yeah, and I'm really afraid of what could happen, and we didn't talk about that today. It was on one of the things we wanted to talk about. Is like what would happen if in both scenarios, if Trump loses, how are his supporters going to respond to that? If he wins, how are his supporters going to respond to that? And both of those scenarios are just as scary. I think if he loses, there'll be a tick in violence, an uptick in violence, but it'll die down because it'll get squashed and he lost. But if he wins, I do think that they're going to be empowered and emboldened, and we're going to go closer to fascism than ever before in the history of this country, to be honest with you.
I think that, well, there's an article, I want to say is in, I forget what magazine it's in, but I'll post it. I posted it before. There's a guy who does war game theory, and he gave predictions of the 4 different types of civil war that we could go into after this election. And understand this, he didn't think that the answer was going to be none of the above. It's going to be one of them. And he said if Biden wins by a landslide, then you have most likely a reenactment of the Civil War, where one side gets trounced and we end up tamping it back down. You know, maybe you have some flare-ups here and there, but by and large, it's over. It may take a couple of months of the military forcibly outing Trump, you know, all these militias. The militias are going to rise up no matter what happens. And that's what people need to understand. It isn't about, well, if, it's when. Is it going to be November 2nd or November 4th? Because I guarantee you, they are ready to come and hit the streets. They want to do it. They've been waiting to do it. And they do feel with that stand back and stand by statement that they have been given a green light to wreak chaos on Black and brown bodies across the United States. They're not going to ask you if you
wanted them to monitor. He wanted them to monitor people voting. And that's basically monitor is a euphemism for intimidate. Because if they're standing out there with their guns or whatever, they're intimidating voters. That is voter suppression at its core level, right there. That's it. That's voter suppression. I want you to stand by my to make sure things are not going right. No, you want this power because you need to be in power for 4 more years so you can clear off your debt with these foreign countries. That's really what it's all about. You want to enrich your family, which you've been doing for these first 3.5 years, but now you got to pay off that debt, and that debt is coming due. And if you get voted out of power, you're going to be on the hook for that. And because they're not trying to.
There are a lot of other scenarios.
And they can. They can come after him for that, for that debt if he's not the president anymore, because now he's protected. But if he's not president anymore, guess what? They can come for him. So that's all I have.
Like you said earlier that, he says this person is trying to get him and that person is trying to get him and this person is trying to get him. If everybody's trying to get you, hey, bro, maybe you need to get got. Like just go ahead and end it. Like not end it. I'm not telling him to kill himself or anything, but just go ahead and stop this farce of a leadership role. Like go ahead and just, he never wanted to be president. Even he would tell you that if you can get him alone. He just wanted to have a platform to spew his nonsense and maybe get paid on the side. And he turned our presidency into a platform for him to get paid on the side through his golf course and everything else. He's just out here stacking money. He don't care about none of y'all.
He was trying to funnel some of those campaign donations into his pockets, and that's what he was expecting to do. That's why he just bloviated to increase the campaign contributions. He didn't expect people to actually go out and vote for him because he didn't want to do the job. That's why on Tuesday, and I did a summary on my page, he didn't say not one plan. When you asked him about environment, about climate change, he said, "I want clean air and clean water." Well, how do you get clean air and clean water, dummy? Like he had no plan for anything.
From cleaning out old trees in California.
You got a rake. We need to take California, come out there, go to the forest with a rake. Really? So I mean, he had no plan. We asked him about race relations. He said police, right? So that's his response is black people get on the line or they don't even want to do. We're just going to send more police in there to get control. And so that's really you got to.
Make no mistake. That is what law and order means. That is what law and order has always meant since police forces were first incorporated, is to keep minorities and unsavories, etc., in their place. That is the law and order. It is control and segregation. Keep them away from me, keep them out of my sight, however you have to. And if they get too far or too close to me, you have a right to kill them. That's why so many cops, and again, I don't blame the cops who have come up in a racist system. I blame the system that allowed them to get trained this way, where they see Black and brown people as a problem. Even the Black and brown cops see Black and brown people as a problem because they've been taught that for the last 30, 40, 80 years, you know?
I don't blame the system as much as the white supremacists that have infiltrated law enforcement, and they're recruiting their friends. And so therefore they're coming in with that ideology. And so it doesn't matter what the system is doing. They're creating the false numbers, right? They're skewing the results. So it's like with stop and frisk. If you're stopping 85% Black and brown people, guess what? You're going to say, hey, this worked well because look how many guns or whatever. And so, but and all the contraband is being found with Black and brown people. That's why we're doing it. If you stopped and frisk white people, you'd find just as much. And those numbers would be more in line with the way the population is, not with this skewed in one direction. But if you're skewing how you're policing the community, if you're only pulling over majority Black and brown people, and then you can say, well, they commit most of the crimes because we searched the car and we found this and that. Absolutely, that's what you're going to find. You're finding what you're looking for, right? You're going to find what you're looking for. People have contraband on the car, but it's equal or even greater on the majority side. But if you're not getting pulled over, hey, they can leave the gun on the seat next to the bag of weed and not get pulled over. So it's like, it's silly and it's idiotic, but that shows you how deep ingrained that mindset is, that how well that gaslighting has taken effect and taken hold, that they don't even see it. They can't even see it any other way, because any other way says that what's happened to me my entire life from birth to now has been a lie. And no one, and the majority of white America does not want to believe that. And that's the hardest thing for them to come across.
You think about one of the cops in the Breonna Taylor case, and he was like, they're trying to stop us from doing our job. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to stop you from killing unarmed Black people. We're not trying to stop you from doing your job. You're telling me that your job is to kill unarmed Black people. Now, where did you get that from? And why?
And not verify warrants, and not realize that the person you were going to look for was already in custody. Not all of that. That's also part of your job. You didn't do that part. So don't try to tell me we're stopping you from doing your job. If you'd have done your job, Breonna Taylor would be alive. That's really what it boils down to. That's what I would push back. Is like, if you had done your job, Breonna Taylor would be alive, right? And now you're doing overwork.
One of my
in public opinion.
Friends, a former employer, her name is Susan. Susan's half her family is cops in California, and she said, mm-hmm. you know, most of them have never had to discharge their weapon, and they work in LA County. You know, so your job can be done without killing someone that was no real threat to you. You know, you don't have to be that way. But when you train them for war, and you train them to be predators, they see citizens, because Black people are citizens of these United States. They see citizens mm-hmm. as enemies and prey. Mm-hmm. And either you're mm-hmm. an enemy because I caught you doing something and I got to do excessive force to take you down, or you're prey and I'm going to provoke you until you do something that I can arrest you for and add to my numbers, because it's 4:30 and I need 2 more cases before I go home. All of this is wrong.
The funniest charge that
it's after 6. I just want you to know.
But the funniest charge I always find is that when somebody gets arrested for resisting arrest. Well, what were you arresting? What was the initial charge? Oh, you just provoked them to where they got upset, and then you wanted to detain them, and then they got more upset, and then you say, I'm arresting you for resisting arrest. That's not possible. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those charges get thrown out, but the fact that you've already been inconvenienced and you got put in the system because you got arrested, you got to wait to get put in the system to get bonded out, and then if you don't have an attorney, that charge sticks. But if you get an attorney, that gets thrown out because, like, what was the original charge? Well, but they have to create a charge in order to charge you with resisting arrest. I've seen too many videos like that, but I thank you all for joining. The chat room has stayed active.
Real quick, because we did not have a show last week, I want to say of the late, great Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I hope I get this right, may her memory be a treasure to everyone. May she remind us all about the best sides and parts of us, you know? And I hope that the Breonna Taylor case gets revisited. Those are the 2 things from last week. And then this shit show from this week. I know they're going to have to do another debate, because if Trump backs out, they're going to say he refused to bow down to the libtards rules or whatever. Right. But if Biden says we should stop debating, oh, he's weak, you know, he's a sucker. So they're going to have to do a debate, because because
They
America
would have
loves a shit show.
already made their decisions. I do want to send out one quick shout out of prayer for John Legend and Chrissy Teigen.
Yes.
They had an unfortunate miscarriage, and that is very, very hard to be that public, and share it, and then to have something that tragic happen to their family. So give them some space. Some people have saying some really horrific things on social media, and stop being bullies, guys. If you've been through it, you understand. I've been through it, so I definitely understand. So just send prayers for them and give them the space that they deserve.
Right. Totally agree.
So,
okay.
That's it.
Family, we gotta get out of here because he has somewhere to be. I gotta prep for another 9:00 class tonight, so I need to drink some water. Since I finished this drink, I wasn't supposed to finish. But I appreciate y'all hanging with us this long. And we will be back next week.
Sweat for me, so I'm getting a little liquor, but I got to get another glass.
See, that's why you don't put too much ice in there. So when you're done, you're done. Like I got every drop. I'm gonna teach you the ways of the veterans in the liquor game, son.
Thank you, Sensei.
But next week we hopefully will have another guest. And so we'll talk about that off air. But next week we're going to have another guest. We're going to get back into when we first started our radio show during COVID. We talked about trying to get your hustle on. Hopefully next week we'll have another guest that talks about elevating your hustle. So we'll see how that goes. But stay tuned, and we will see you next week. Ellis, I'll let you
may have a guest come on talk about how to protect yourself if these Proud Boys and folks try to pop off. Because I'm seriously thinking about getting me one. Real talk.
I got 2. And some more stuff I ain't going to talk about on air.
Look, they say, hey, look, but you from Texas.
You know how we go, man. I shot my first gun when I was 9.
Yeah. Y'all don't count. I'm talking about the rest of the folks. So, all right, people. Roy, take us out. Thank you all. Real Fun Radio. We will see y'all next week.
So you're a philosopher? Yes.
This is
Thoughts and Moments. Hey, it's your boy Silly Thoughts, the Prince of Petty.
And I'm Joy, also known as Joy Ride. I provide the moments to make your life better.
We're here weekly to provide the latest news, trending topics, and edutainment.
We will engage, entertain, and inform, but we keep it real and we keep it fun.
So whether you're riding in these streets or podcast surfing with your peeps,